My name is Cameron Collins. I am the host of the Sprocketpod, along with my co-host here, Mark Lerner. And I am also the community manager for Sprocketeer, the largest independent community for HubSpot admin. Mark, I'll let you give yourself a little plug and then we'll introduce our guests.
Sure. I am Mark Lerner, as said, Director of Growth Marketing at Deal Hub. You can go check us out at dealhub.io. I'm also the Chief Hat Officer of the Sprocket Pod. And yes, happy to be here again.
Amazing. And we do have our guests, Chris and Selim. Chris, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself first. Why are we talking about CMS Hub and how'd you end up where you are as impassionate about HubSpot as you are today?
Yeah. So Chris Carolyn just started this new agency, growth consulting firm with Selim a few months ago. Came from industrial manufacturing space, started in the lab, grew through production quality control and oil and gas. And then since I knew all the customers, I knew all the products, I got to do the marketing and sales at some point and just met HubSpot in 2017, implemented it at 4 companies, too small, too big, and got as far as I could get from inside the 4 walls. And we're trying to make an impact from the outside. And HubSpot community has been great. And yeah, we're excited to be talking about this today.
Love it. I feel like the customer experience is so underserved, and CMS Hub definitely does not get as much love and attention as it deserves. So we're going to be really dissecting some exciting stuff here today. So I want to let you go ahead and introduce yourself before we dive in, though.
Of course. Hi, my name is Selim Malouf. I am an industrial engineer turned marketer, worked in end-of-line packaging solutions, and learned about something called inbound methodology from a company called HubSpot. And ever since, I've been a HubSpot user and fan. And I've worked in a lot of industrial companies where I've met Chris, and we're starting this initiative from the outside because we believe we're very passionate about the solutions, and we want to make sure that we're focusing on that instead of corporate management structures and selling ideas internally. We hope we can make a better impact as a growth agency.
I definitely think you are making an impact, especially when we get into the demonstration that we have here today. But before we talk about the actual CMS Hub, the customer portal, the customer experience, and how we can make it better, I want to talk about why it's broken. I know we've talked a little bit about this offline. Chris, Salim, I want to open it to the both of you. What exactly is it that you've seen in your industry? And then how does that also apply to a broken customer experience?
Yeah. So for me, like I was rudely awakened to this fact when I met HubSpot. It's a 10-person company, and I'm like just started getting excited about marketing automation and taking this approach. But then every book and podcast I was listening to told me how it was like a whole company needed to be involved, and this wasn't something that the marketing person could just go and get it done. And I was like, well, that's no fun because this just got a lot more challenging because not everybody else is jazzed about this situation as I am. And I just kept learning from that. Have a hard time not thinking about growth, vision, the big picture. And I learned in many ways, not everybody else is like that too. Not everybody else wants to grow at full speed. And in doing so, like just seeing at the smaller companies where everybody's trying to do a bunch of stuff, learned a lot from there. But when I went to the bigger companies, it's seeing the customer experience, how it's taking place in the service department with the sales team, even accounting, sending invoices that may be overdue or not, and maybe they already paid before. All these things are impacting the experience. And when I'm brought into a new company to build out this modern marketing thing and realize that the systems are not in place to support it, like you can't give me a list of customers that I can start interacting with because it's buried in the ERP. So just all of these different learnings came from that. And since I always try to connect all the dots for better or worse, it's not hard to jump to see, okay, this is why the quote is taking 3 weeks and a customer is not, that doesn't match customer expectations. When I call service and then I have to wait 1, 2, 3 days for a major problem, that's not matching expectations. And I think we got there because obviously COVID had a lot to do with it. the digital transformation stuff was happening before that. It sped it up, but these companies were able to survive and still are to some extent because they were so good at the in-person experience. And some of them just have massive coverage of people. They go to shows regularly. Like they're very good at that part. But as soon as you take any piece of that away and you have to get supported by digital systems, it just breaks like immediately. And that impacts both the internal and the external customer experience.
When we started thinking about this project, I had some personal investment in it because 2 companies ago, I was part of a 12-month but like project that was aimed solely at sending order status updates through an email system. And I was the marketing operations lead back then. And due to the fact that not everything is integrated and HubSpot was like this silo on its own, the project went nowhere. Like 12 months of back and forth meetings, trying to get things done. Everybody's trying to make it happen outside of HubSpot. And the easy solution is to just bring it into HubSpot and then we'll deal with it from there. But nobody wanted to take the time to do the integration. So seeing us embarking on this project, making sure everybody is comfortable putting everything in HubSpot and then unleashing HubSpot, we're putting 2 and 2 together here, but we're not doing something that HubSpot cannot do. We're just unlocking what HubSpot can already do.
I would liken what you're saying almost to an equivalence of being a sales rep that doesn't want their sales notes seen by the prospect, right? You have all of this information that goes into HubSpot, and not all of it needs to be consumer facing.
It looks like Cameron froze there for a minute. All right, we got some technical issues. That's what happens when we go live, right? But yeah, I think I wanted to observe something interesting about the way we're talking about HubSpot and maybe dovetail a little bit back to some of the kind of how we're comparing it to a little bit of the Salesforce ecosystem. I think HubSpot is really conducive to this idea of being able to build these experiences in a way that is open to a lot more people. Like I think that some of the other, let's say, traditional CRMs are more of this kind of walled garden experience. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced as well, but I think it lends itself a lot more to this kind of blank canvas that people can paint on. And I think Cameron might be back with the living now if he wants to jump back into where he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, what I was trying to get through is that the more information we can give to our customers, the better experience they'll have. They don't need to see everything that's in HubSpot, but it's important for them to be able to see where they're at in their journey and the information that's important to them. And
Right.
Chris, Selim, you've built something that really helps to allow customers to visualize where they're at in their journey. So I'd love for us to open up the demo that you've put together for what that customer journey looks like using the CMS Hub.
Yeah. Let's get
Let's
into
do
it.
it. I'm excited.
I think it's important to note that it's not CMS Hub on its own, but it's CMS Hub and it's powered to tap into the CRM.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excited.
And that's really where we see this customer portal that is coming up right now. Is what we see as something that's not only going to solve for a lot of just amazingly long lasting, intense pain that these companies have been going through, the different ways you can just use the power of the CRM plus the CMS. And one of the ways I got buy-in on HubSpot a lot is just any piece of data, like when the CMS is involved, any piece of data that you put in the system can be delivered via a website very easily. And these are the kinds of things like showing this customer portal and just being from the space has allowed us to know, or think we know at least, the kind of impact this is going to have, because people talk about this stuff as if it's just a pipe dream, right? We would love to have stuff like this. And as we're learning the lay of the land and then thinking back to what we've experienced, it's for a lot of these use cases, there's either like a glorified spreadsheet program that you can do on your browser, or it's like $1 million enterprise software and like nothing in between. right? And we see a lot of opportunity where this doesn't, what I'm about to show is super magical, but it's not built on magic. And it doesn't take a year to put together. It doesn't take a whole team to maintain. And to the point of like how HubSpot can just make things happen that we haven't seen in other systems. I learned two things on this journey, and that is just you cannot underestimate the usability of the system just to really like subconsciously motivate people to give it a try or to keep using it or to share like the wow moments with somebody else. And then as I learned about ERPs and Salesforce and a lot of other systems are built around the account record or the company record. HubSpot is built around the contact record, the human being. And as soon as you understand that, it makes sense why it's the best at managing communications. It's the best at managing the things around the human being because that's who you need to do business with. So that's why I've loved putting this together. And even as I was putting this together, like it just continually, if we can just share the message of like how easy this and close this could be, like that's the real power here. So
Chris, if you don't mind, we're dancing around it. It sounds like a pipe dream because everybody is trying to get this done without involving. HubSpot's power is that it pulls everything together, makes everything easy. When you choose to, for some reason, to not involve HubSpot in your operations and have it be central, or at least have a middleware and talk to your ERP, or just involve HubSpot in your daily operation instead of having it be a silo in your just sales and marketing and service. That's why it feels like a pipe dream. The moment you are bought into that customer, that HubSpot is a customer platform Yamini was talking about this year at Inbound, instead of just being the marketing software or the sales software, then it stops being a pipe dream.
yes, no longer is it the expensive marketing tool. It's now the really affordable full platform.
So for those who are watching, show us what the customer experience looks like then getting into this portal, first from the user perspective, then we'll dissect it from how this is built in HubSpot, which will be a more in-depth build of how you put this together.
Right.
But if I was the customer, what am I looking at? How does this benefit me? Go ahead and give me a walkthrough of what this is.
So just imagine like the usual login sequence that you're used to. It's login based. And we come to your customer portal screen and we got a list of orders here. Maybe you need some support from me. Here's an easy calendar to go ahead and book that time. Your resources your way. Learning center right here that can be filtered on what is relevant to you and your products, what your interests are. So if we click on an order, I first started talking about this, the concept of Domino's Pizza Tracker resonated with a lot of people. So that's how we've gone about it. So here, let me show a different one real quick. So look at demo order 5. And so everything after these two words is being pulled from CRM records directly. And deliverable is a deliverable custom object that's built on. But these are, and what really dawned on me earlier this year, because where this stems from is a big customer. We had 10 to 15 projects open at any one time. We were having 3 calls a week with multiple people on the call from customer and ours, 1 hour each call, just to talk about order status.
Wow.
At some point, that customer was like, guys, we need access to this information without having these calls. And so naturally, we start putting together spreadsheets, 15 tabs, and where's the data in the ERP? Where's the buy resale data in somebody's inbox? Takes 2 weeks just to put the spreadsheet together. This is not a solution to this problem, everybody. So what can
Are
we
these
do
custom
differently?
stages built from the CRM?
Yeah. First, and I guess I'll wait for the HubSpot stuff after I
Okay.
finish this in. But like what dawned on me is that if I'm thinking about my Amazon experience, like I care about what's inside of the order not the order, right? I want to know status of every piece of the order. And that's where these systems are built to. The line items of all the systems are not built to support that concept, like, except for when you go to e-commerce and B2C and somehow they figured it out and it's never an issue. But so that's when, once I realized that, the focus became, okay, how do we focus on each line item? Because behind the scenes, sometimes the shipping address needs to change if it ships in April instead of January, and you just have all these different moving parts. And how we've gotten away with serving this is, like, you might write some notes down on the paper order stack that might make it to the ERP, but at the end of the day, the real communication to the next person is walking over to their desk and telling them what changes happened, right? And then after the fact, it goes into the system somewhere. So Domino's Pizza Tracker is the concept behind this, and can we do that? So if we click see details here, got these different stages, just a quick visual to understand progress. And then we click see details. And now, again, this information is being pulled directly from the CRM, including this reorder link, which then they can come and check out if they want to reorder. And none of this, there's no e-commerce tools behind this, right? It's HubSpot CRM, it's HubSpot CMS. So this is what's possible. And we've had a lot of good feedback as far as this information. And I think the disconnect is that you only see it from the Amazons from the world. Like, it just hasn't made it, not only manufacturing, but B2B. This doesn't happen. And so, yeah, so it's not more complicated than what we're seeing here. I think the fun stuff gets into once you see how easy it is to put this together and manage it. It doesn't take 100 hours of development and a whole team to manage it. So yeah, what comes to mind as you guys see this?
I mean, this is awesome, and I think the imagery of the Domino's Pizza Tracker is obviously was thoughtful, and it really does look like that. My initial reaction is like, wow, this must have taken a very long time to put together. I have experience working with CMS Hub from a few years ago and redoing our company website using Hubble and the language, the templating language that CMS Hub is run on, or was run on then. So I'm definitely interested to see behind the scenes, but I'm interested. This use case seems often about physical products, but I wonder, have you seen use cases in which it's services or software products?
Yes, short answer is yes. And I'm also like for me, like, once you get over the fact that line items as they are built out are never going to be what we want them to be.
Right.
And now I'm like, maybe it's just my natural qualification of what we want to do or justification. But if you think about it, like, products is like the planned thing, right? Line items is the negotiated, sold, certainly like super malleable and also instantaneous thing. And then there's nothing after the sale to say, okay, now we need to manage this thing. And people have gotten really good at getting really creative with ticket pipelines and deal pipelines to try and manage this stuff. But as soon as I also I tried to be a good HubSpot admin and not just go to custom object if you think it already exists in the system. But it just couldn't be done when you got to manage it with shipments and just all the variables. But then once I talked to service providers who were from our space and thinking back to my relationship, the first place I saw it was we used to do print ads and sponsorships with the publishing, like the industrial publishers. And how did I interact with them? How did I know the progress of the project? Email, right? Okay, we got it published today. Hey, it's been published for a week and these are the results. Like, all of that was email. And I talked to that guy and he said that he actually spends up to 25% of his week as a sales account manager having order status communication via calls and emails.
Wow.
And that's the kind of stuff like that's everywhere. And
Yeah.
if we can free up 25% of his week, maybe he can sell some more stuff, right? Maybe he can build some better relationships.
It looks like we have a question from the audience here regarding serverless functions as a part of this. I think the use case was getting tracking numbers from the United States Postal Service. I don't know how far in the weeds you want to get with the back end stuff, but maybe you could speak a little bit to that.
So that is, we dance around the fact that line items aren't serving us, and through the from quote to cash process, like that step from line items to deliverables is exactly how we're doing that step with a serverless function, which turns a closed won deal, takes its line items and turns it into its individual objects. So I guess to unlock the start to finish process, yes, you do need something of the sort. So there's definitely opportunity to do that as well.
Exciting.
Yeah. And this is where understanding we are like 1000% advocates of customer platform as a concept and offering. There are places where HubSpot's just beginning on this side of things too. And the Commerce Hub APIs are not a thing yet. So up here, if I want to show actually my payments and my subscriptions, I'm not able to do that yet. I think that team is working very hard on making that possible. And that's where, again, back to the culture of the ecosystem as a whole, HubSpot tends to be very different. This is another way where I'm just like, I'm 3 months in as an agency partner, but they listen. And once we realized the two disconnects where this really is a marketing automation company at its core, the DNA, we've started doing sales and CRM stuff, now customer platform. There's gaps in the ecosystem and the knowledge sets. And so they are so welcoming, and I'm not, bashful about some of this stuff because I've seen one of the things since 2017 is I've seen ecosystems like this, any kind of marketing consultant just talking at like the manufacturing space. And now that I'm in it, I can see it much more clearly. And this is part of the reason why that space is so far behind, I think. But just talking to this team, so I'm positioning it, deliverables is the customer success object that we don't have and need. Like orders is right around the corner. Some awesome stuff to show there. But truly what it takes to go from lead to cash in these other spaces is much different from like agency and services once you get to hard product. But the initial question of this use case is everywhere. And the reason I think I have a case with deliverables is that anything, if I give you money, no matter what your business is, what I'm going to get in return can, I think, always be classified as a deliverable, like no matter what it is. So that's how I think there's room for this. And to give that experience to the customer, it's really important that we, understand. And that's where like the customization of the platform, every business is different. Yep. But every customer wants the same thing along the journey. And that's, are you hearing me? Are you seeing me? Like I filled out the form. Am I getting a notification immediately? I signed for the quote. Do I get an order confirmation or something immediately? I give you the money and you tell me it's going to be shipping at this time. Don't surprise me by giving it to me a week earlier, even if that sounds like a good idea, because I'm not ready at the dock, right? I don't want any uncertainty throughout the process. So that's where I think we can standardize some of that customer facing stuff. And again, that's where I think HubSpot's been awesome. And that's why they are where they are. It's not about starting from scratch. It's about understanding the use cases and the customer experience and then building a system always in service of that. And it's just a beautiful thing.
I think to bring this back into the world of RevOps, this is about giving customers their source of truth. We talk a lot about internally in the revenue operations world having a source of truth, making HubSpot your source of truth. This is the customer's source of truth for what's happening on their end of the engagement. And Selim, I want to open it to you because I know we've talked in the past a little bit about the order object, the deliverable objects coming out. And I want to hear your perspective of how that plays into this. Chris, feel free to share your screen and give us visuals along with anything he may be throwing our way as well.
Having been the HubSpot admin myself, and having been the one that's tried to wrangle line items into doing things that we're trying to get it to do right now, I've been in the weeds in spreadsheets and imports and learning quickly that, oh, line items, the only way to interact with them is either manually or through an import, but the import cannot update existing line items. It can only append. And if I want to do line item updates, then I need to use the API. But when I do an export, then line item IDs don't get surfaced, and it's crazy. It gets to the point where you just throw your hands up and tell your boss, like, hey, I can't do this. It's like, why can't I do this? It's just not built to do what we're trying to do post sale. It's doing amazing things during the sale for quoting, etc., and interacting with the product object. But we got to the point where if I'm the smart HubSpot admin and I can't do this stuff, my order management team, who's getting trained on HubSpot, who is a lot of the times in our industry not very tech savvy, you need a step-by-step, here's what you click, here's what you do. They need that object experience that we have with a deal, that we have with a contact. You need to be able to attach documents. You need to be able to associate other objects. We need an activity tracker and the activity feed, historical data. You can't overwrite. So all of this, we got to the point where we looked at each other, Chris and I, and said, that's fine. We're going to create this custom object, and we're going to figure out how to work around the limitations of custom objects, because the upside is so huge and you're seeing how it's happening. So this, like, we bumped into this wall personally. I bumped into this wall personally, and I pride myself on how much I can get done in a spreadsheet, but those kind of gymnastics I was ready to be in the past.
And one thing that we talked about prior to the show going live is the fact that in this use case, of course, we're looking at a niche example, but I see application here so far beyond the industrial manufacturing space. I know that there's a lot of opaqueness that you've personally experienced, but I even think about how I work with customers and partners and how the experience could be improved by something like this. We've talked about the Domino's pizza tracker, and that image is so ubiquitous. And then looking at what you've built here, it's so clear the value that can be driven by using HubSpot CMS Hub, by using all the information that's native to HubSpot, and then displaying it for the customer as we're seeing here and as has been shown. Chris, I want you to go ahead and peel back the onion another layer and show us, what does the actual CMS page look like? How have you actually built this to get it to do what it does?
So click on the edit page right over here.
Yeah, we get to see the guts of this thing. Let's take a look.
You might be disappointed to see some code. It's CMS Hub. They're going to look at it as, oh, this is CMS Hub. And once he opens the module, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, this is exactly CMS Hub.
Yeah. And I think the key is, again, like, if you don't have to start from scratch, don't. We work with a great theme from the marketplace, the Clean Pro theme. And any development that we do is usually starting from one of those modules, because we don't have as much experience on the development side, and we're not going to pretend to think that we can build a better module. But if we can iterate on that and then enlist the right kind of help, that's how we approach this. So this is just the sidebar here. It's a really simple menu setup that's easy to manage once you have the pages that you want to link to. I have some additional settings here. Won't do a whole CMS Hub tutorial here, but just having all these settings, not only editable and malleable right here in a very no code kind of way, also being able to control it from a central point just is the right amount of flexibility and control for the branding identity team. That my favorite thing is to give this tool to subject matter experts. and watch them build pages. Like instead of sending me a Word doc with what you want on the page, let me take 15 minutes and show you how to use this Word doc that's actually inside of HubSpot. And now when you're done, we have a page. And it just cuts out so much of the back and forth. All the places, like instead of to solve for the process, like in the way of how do we communicate better with each other, what if we just take out the Word doc, right? And that's where it's understanding that these are smart people that we work with. And if we take 15 minutes to show them, they see the value pretty quickly. But this guy, and this is where, so there's two places where we've done development, and that is in support of this module. So it's called associated deliverables, and it's set up so that we have our stage tracker settings. And let me just switch to the example here.
I think this one specifically might be misleading. This is a fallback. It checks who's doing the login and pulls deliverables based on associations in CRM. But for our demo purposes right now, making sure that it doesn't break live, we had a fallback of if it throws an error, then it's going to choose the contact that we have here.
Yeah.
And you custom coded this module in the Hubble, like in the developer experience?
Yes. Yeah. In most cases, it's starting with the module that already exists and then iterative on top of that. And so here we can control like the different stage colors and text color. But this is really, I think, this is the powerful stuff that when you connect it to the CRM and understand how easy it can be to do this stuff. So when we're like this piece, when we get to this piece here, so like this situation, the ability to change what's here is simply like we click into the columns and even like reversing the columns, which way they are, classic, which is what you get type of editor. But if I want to go like in adjust properties, even adjust the name of the property, all this is grabbing from the properties in the CRM, right? And if we come back and we got to add something, right? It's as simple as I can go add a property, and let's just do that. Like coming into properties here, go to deliverables, create a property.
The Sprocketpod.
Right.
Is there, while you're doing that, does HubDB play into any of this?
In its current stage, yes, but we're working on taking it out. The only reason is custom object stages do not carry the names into their variable names, but they're instead a number sequence. And we're using a HubDB table to look up what number sequence has what name to display the stage. But that's the only place where the HubDB is playing a role. In a serverless function situation, that those tables already exist somewhere else.
Right.
And that's not something we have to deal with when working with deals, for example, because variable names usually typically have the name in them.
Yeah, I'm going into nerd zone here. I remember spending a lot of time in CMS Hub previously and messing around with HubDB and feeling like there was a lot of it could be done with it, and I just wasn't using it to its potential.
If you enjoy HubDB, then the module that's at the bottom, which is our like content delivery mechanism, is basically a HubDB table of a content inventory. And based on specific filters attached to whoever is signing in, based on what kind of deliverables they have, then that filtering can be dynamic, and as such, it only pulls the lines from the HubDB that are relevant.
Super interesting. I'm not sure if it's interesting to everyone, but I geek out on a lot of these things, so I enjoy it.
Yeah. In fact, that content delivery module is not exclusive to the portal. In fact, this is something that we use a lot in our normal websites where, for example, you have a product page, and every time, instead of custom updating what like relevant content there is at the bottom, all you have to do is develop one module, place it on every page, and for each page you change the filters, and in the background you have your content inventory that is updating every time you add a new piece of content. a new data sheet, a new blog post, whatever it is, all you have to do is make sure your content manager is adding that line to the HubDB with the right filter properties. And voila, your website now has access to this new piece of content, and it's dynamically added to every single page instead of having some poor employee go and update every single product page and updating all those links.
Yeah. And just to finish this short demonstration, added the property in the CRM, added it to the CMS module, and now like it's on the page. And if there were information in the CRM, it would be showing up here. And literally, that's just my favorite thing at HubSpot. I started playing with this earlier this week, and I'm like, hey, can I do this? I've never seen anybody else do it before. I know these things exist in the system. If it works intuitively, it takes 5 minutes. And I'm not saying that's always the case, but more often than not, it is. And it works as easy as you think it could work based on how the whole system works. And that's the awesome part of if you're in one part of HubSpot and have in it, there's an experience there. More often than not, similar experience is going to be in the other hubs or the other records, as opposed to like the cobbling together of multiple platforms. And you got to worry about which system you're in to know how the plus sign works, what you're going to get when you click on it. So that's that side of things. And honestly, like beyond that, we look to develop maybe a little bit more, but that's how simple it can be. And it's just, let's not overthink it. And this is why it's powerful in that we can have you in this. Like, it doesn't matter which CRM you have, right? Because that's one of the challenges of bringing HubSpot in is, oh, I already got Salesforce. I already got this ERP. I already have this website. Even if I hate it, like, we can't change right now. That the change management is the hard part, right?
Yeah.
None of that matters as long as you can give me the data, right? And that's where it's like the conversation becomes, let's not keep asking the ERP to do non-ERP things. Just give me these 20 pieces of data, right, related to the order. And that's why we're selling a customer portal here. It's not HubSpot that can also be a customer portal. It's like the customer portal is what you want. You don't have to use HubSpot as a CRM if you don't want to, but the same person that's answering the calls and spending the time in these ordering conversations, ask that person to grab the data from wherever it's at, put it in this specific spot of HubSpot, and now the customer has self-service access to this information that you thought was so like, just that's the pipe dream part. Oh, I'm never going to get the data out of the ERP. Like, we're never, like, integrations take 2 years. Oh, that kind of platform, that customer experience platform that costs $100,000. Like, we don't have time for that. No, that's not where we're at here. The key is understanding, and I've started turning to this question as we talk through process. This piece of data, do we ever communicate it to the customer? Do we ever want the customer to see it? If the answer is yes, we need to take that into account on where it is, when it's there. Because the cool thing about this, and this is very intentional from Selim and I, when I was building this stuff out inside of companies, concepts like, do you want to be the number one resource in your space? Do you see the value in that when it comes to growth and leads and opportunities? Yes, of course you see the value, right? Okay, we're bought in. Here's the budget. Build out a team. And then you start doing stuff, and just the change management appetite is just not there. And it involves everybody. So this customer portal can be a low amount. It should be a low amount of change management, just a slight tweak to the process. And now you just unlock time from the system. Now people can get on how-to videos. Now we can focus on actual human relationship building and not just being like the help desk answering calls. So we love the marketing stuff. We love demand gen. We love doing videos, but it's such a far away from where these companies are sometimes. This is a spot where we think it's not, we're not doing this for the money. Like this piece, this is just going to help so many people that have been asking for things like simple reorder links for customers forever. And now it's there. Yeah, we can talk about this stuff all day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And there's going to be more offline. I know, Chris, Selim, you and I have already had numerous conversations about this, and there certainly will be more opportunities to bring it back into the Sprocket Pod. Mark, before we hop, I want to give you your piece when it comes to line items maybe not being the best fit. I know we talked about this briefly, but just in terms of Deal Hub supercharging this, because I know that this really is something where they can add value and play a role. I want to give you your plug and we'll move into a wrap from there.
Sure. Yeah, I could talk about it all day, but just needs to say Deal Hub is a kind of natively integrated CPQ solution for kind of that quote to revenue process. And it works within HubSpot, but obviously builds its own custom objects in a way that facilitates, let's say, some more of the complex pricing and negotiating tactics that sales teams need, and overcomes some of the maybe limitations within kind of the product quote line item infrastructure. I could go into the kind of technical details, but you can check us out on dealhub.io or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat about it further.
And from a revenue operations perspective, the value there is then going to be that you have an easier transaction sales process. You have clean information going into HubSpot and then connecting that to Chris and Selim, what they've built. Now that information displays in a nice, clean way on the customer portal.
Yeah, we talk about data integrity across your entire revenue engine, and whatever parts of the revenue engine exist, you want to make sure that whatever's in the CRM was in the quote is in everything else, and that the customer gets the service or product they ordered at the time they ordered it, so that you can recognize the revenue and that your finance team can do all the reporting correctly. It's integral, and I think that quote to revenue, that quote process is a really important piece, because if something goes wrong there, the knock-on effects later on can be pretty tragic. I could talk about this part all day, and I don't want to keep everyone like an entire episode on its own.
I do want to just add one thing, because that reminds me of the point I was trying to make with change management. Like a customer portal is also a concept that people get behind. But as soon as we start talking about it, everything that's not great about the process required to get the data there starts revealing itself very quickly. Like no longer can we wait till the end of the month to fill in these shipping date fields because it's needed for the report. So yeah, that data integrity, and this is a forcing function of, okay, if we want the customers to see this stuff, then all this other stuff needs to be right.
Yeah, and I would just take it back to a comment I made earlier, which is you don't want to be the sales guy who has notes that you wouldn't want your prospect to see. It's the same exact thing for the back end of your CRM. You don't want to have data that's so messy that you wouldn't want your customers to see. And this customer portal really surfaces the need to have a clean CRM, and then it gives that clean data back to the customer so they know where they stand in their journey. Selim, Chris, thank you so much for joining us on the Sprocket Pod today. Just for those who are watching, let them know, I know you're in the Sprocketeer group, but let them know how or where they can connect you, how they can reach out if anyone is interested in learning more or chatting with you about the customer portal experience and potentially collaborating with you to develop their own.
Reach out on the Sprocketteer or right here on LinkedIn. We're big advocates on having our communication on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Selim Malouf right here.
Amazing. Thank you for everyone who's been watching. Mark, as always, pleasure to have you on with the Sprocket Pod. Selim, Chris, thank you for joining me on the Sprocket Pod today. Hats on today. Hats off to everyone here, and Sprocket on. Bye, team.
Bye.
Thanks so much.